There was a lantern lit in the far barn, long past the hour of any honest work, and a low laugh crossing the dark yard that was not mine and had no reason to be there. I did not go and look closer. I did not have to. I knew the whole of it at once, the way you know a thing in your body before your mind will let you say the words. And still, this is the part I have carried longest, when I went for help, to the one man whose place it is to weigh such things. The very first question was not put to my husband. It was put to me. I want to tell you about the night I learned who a promise is really kept for, and the question I was handed when I went looking for justice. It is only a woman at a dark window, and a lantern where none should be. The night I learned a broken vow, in our world, is looked at like weather no one caused, save the one soul standing closest to the wreck of it. I still believe that whoever breaks a promise would be the one asked to answer for it. Before I go on, stay a moment and sit with me. And down in the comments, tell me one small thing, for I read every one. Has anyone ever asked you what you had done after somebody else was the one who broke the promise? I ask that of every woman who finds this window for the first time. There is a little bell near this window, and if you ring it, I will know to call you back the next evening I have something to tell, for the things I say here are the things we are never permitted to say aloud among our own. Most women go very still when I ask them that, and then a slow recognition comes over them, because a great many of us have stood in a room waiting to hear a wrong named, and heard a question turned back on us instead. Here is how faithfulness and its breaking are truly weighed among us, and I say it plainly and without heat. When a vow is broken, the district does not much like to look straight at the breaking. It prefers to look at the marriage, at the household, at the smooth surface of a community that does not care to see its own face in a broken thing. And so the question is very rarely put first to the one who broke the vow. It is put to the one whose keeping of the home is thought to be its very foundation, the wife. A broken promise is treated among us a little like a barn that has fallen in the night. No one thinks to ask the weather to account for itself. They ask who it was that failed to keep the roof in good repair. And so a wife learns, early and without anyone ever saying it outright, that when a thing breaks in a marriage, she will be the one asked to answer for the weather, no matter whose hand let go of the rope. What matters is who was nearest and who was raised to answer, and that was always her. I have written all of this down, everything I was never able to say aloud in our district, in a small book. It is called A Quiet and Faithful Home, and if you look, there is a little code resting on your screen just now that you may scan, and it will open the book to you. I would like you to have it as my gift, freely, and let it be a comfort to you the way the writing of it was a comfort to me. There is no hurry about it at all. It will keep. But please do not go yet, for I have not told you yet what all those gentle questions were building toward, nor what I finally answered, nor the name of the one woman who found me in the dark afterward and gave me back the words that room had so quietly taken from me. I still believed that whoever breaks a promise would be the one asked to answer for it. I sat in the bishop's front room and felt the belief go cold in my hands. Now I must be careful here, more careful than in almost anything I tell you, because I will not sit at this window and tell you my husband did no wrong. He did. I will call him Reuben, for that was not his name, and Reuben broke a promise he had made before God and the whole gathered church, and nothing I say tonight is meant to lift that from him, nor to lay it at any other door. I want that plain between us. But the story I am telling is not, in the end, about the one lantern in the one barn. It is about what happened when I carried what I had seen to the man whose office it is to set such things right, and about how the wrong I brought in through his door was quietly turned, over the space of a single evening, into a question about me. It is not the breaking I have spent my life trying to understand. It is the turning. So I went to the bishop, as a wife is meant to, and I sat in his front room, and I told him what I had seen, plainly, without adornment, for there was no adornment to be had in it. And he listened, and he was grave, and he was not unkind. And then, when I had finished, he was quiet a while, and then he asked me, gently, as though it were the most natural and caring thing in the world to ask, whether I had perhaps been cold to Reuben of late, whether the house had been kept as it ought, whether I had been short with him, or turned from him, or let some warmth lapse that a husband has a right to expect. The questions went on, each one soft, each one reasonable enough on its own, and that is exactly how I nearly failed to see the shape they were making together. Had I been attentive? Had I let myself grow careless with my looks, or my table, or my temper? Had there been any coldness between us in the marriage bed, asked so delicately that I very nearly missed it had been asked at all? Not one of the questions was about Reuben. Every last one was about me. And somewhere in the middle of them I understood, with a cold clarity I have never quite lost, what was being built, so gently, in that quiet room. It was not a judgment of a man who had broken his vow. It was a case, a slow, prayerful, patient case for how a faithful woman might have failed her husband so badly that a good man could hardly be blamed for wandering. The wrong I had carried in through the door was being, stitch by careful stitch, sewn onto me. And it did not end in that one front room, on that one evening. There was to be counsel, the bishop said, a whole season of it, him and one of the ministers, coming to sit with the two of us of an evening, to mend what had come loose in us. And when those evenings came, I set out the good cups and poured the coffee, and sat in my own kitchen, while two men and my husband spoke of my marriage as a thing that I, chiefly, had the keeping of. They spoke of a wife's warmth as the hearth of a home, and asked me kindly whether mine had perhaps gone cool. They spoke of a husband's needs the way a man speaks of the weather, or of stock, as forces a wise woman learns to tend and to turn, lest they turn somewhere else. And Reuben sat at that table with his hat resting on his knee, and in the whole long course of it, he was asked to account for very nearly nothing at all. That is what the help consisted of, and I will name it plainly, since not one soul in that kitchen ever would. It was being asked, gently and prayerfully, to search my own conduct for the cause of another man's choice. It was a counsel built entirely around my habits, and never once around his. It was the quiet assumption, passing among the women at the next preaching like a dish sent down a long table, that I must somewhere have let something lapse, for a man does not simply wander from a warm and well-kept home, and so mine, they reasoned, must not have been warm, must not have been well enough kept. Not a word of it was ever once called blame. It was all of it called restoring the marriage. It was called peace. It was called mercy. And the strangest thing, the thing that took me the longest years to understand, is that somewhere in the middle of it, I began to do their work for them, to lie awake and hunt back through my own ordinary days for the coldness they were all so certain had been there. But I have not told you yet about the woman who was waiting for me out in the lane afterward, in the dark, who must have known where I had been and what would be asked of me there. For what she said to me, quick and low before I reached my own gate, was the one sentence that kept me from carrying that whole sewn-on case home and wearing it the rest of my life as though it fit. I will call her Rebecca, and she was perhaps 15 years older than I, and I had never once thought of her as anything but a quiet woman who kept to the edge of things. She stepped out from the shadow of a tree where she had plainly been waiting for me, and she took my arm, and she said, low and fast, "I know where you have been, and I know what he asked you." She said, "They asked me the same, a long time ago, and I answered them. I told them all the ways I might have driven him to it, because by the time they were done asking, I half believed that I had." And she gripped my arm harder and she said, "Listen to me, child. for no one said this to me, and I have been sorry my whole life that no one did. You did not do this thing. A cold supper does not break a vow. A sharp word does not break a vow. Only the one who breaks a promise breaks it. Do not let them hand you a weight to carry that was never yours, only because his hands were too full of it, and yours happened to be empty and near. And I understood, standing in that dark lane with her hand hard on my arm, that the promise had never been the thing that room was built to protect. Nor, whatever they told me, was I. It was the marriage's good name that was being kept, and Reuben's standing, and the smooth, untroubled surface of a district that cannot bear to see its own face in a broken thing. The vow was only ever the reason they gave. The peace was the thing being guarded, and a woman was the cheapest place in all the world to set the blame down, because a woman had been raised her whole life long to pick such things up. Now I must be careful again, the same careful I am always careful, because it would be an easy thing to make the bishop the whole of the wrong, and even he is not the single door to lay it at. He asked me those questions because a bishop before him had asked them, and one before that, all the way back down a long line of men who had been taught that the saving of a marriage means the steadying of the wife, and that a household stands or falls on her alone. He believed, I am as sure of it as I am of anything, that he was doing a mercy, mending a home rather than breaking a man. Reuben's wrong was Reuben's own, and I will not move it 1 inch from where it sits. But the turning of it onto me was not the bishop's own invention. It was the water we were all of us born swimming in, a long line of good and frightened people guarding a beautiful and dangerous idea that the peace of the whole is worth more than the truth of what was done to one. And a fish cannot hate the water. That is the very hardest kind of wrong there is to name. So this is what I do now, and it is a small thing, and it is the largest thing I know how to hand anyone. When a woman near me is asked, after some wrong done to her, what she might have done to bring it upon herself, and I have watched it happen more times than I can bear to count, I do for her what Rebecca did for me in the lane. I get close, where no one weighing the piece can hear, and I tell her plainly, that was not yours to carry. A cold supper breaks no vow. A sharp word breaks no vow. Only the one who breaks a promise breaks it, and no gentleness of questioning can ever move that from where it truly belongs. Do not pick up what was set down at your feet only because you were standing near it, and taught your whole life to bend for it. Set it back down. It was never yours. And to you, whoever you are, wherever this quiet finds you tonight, I want to say 3 things before I go. If you are a woman who was blamed for a thing another person chose to do, who went looking for justice and was handed a mirror instead, and asked what you had done to earn your own wound, I see you, and it was not yours, and the asking of it was the wrong, not you. If you are a woman still being asked, even now, what you might have done differently to keep someone else from breaking their word, I see you too, and you may lay that question down the very moment you are ready, for it was never an honest question, only a soft way of moving a weight off the one who earned it. And if you are a woman who once heard someone name it plainly at last, a hand on your arm in a dark lane, one plain, true sentence, and felt a thing you had carried for years finally set down, hear me most of all. Go and be that voice in the lane for the next one. It is the whole of what I know how to do. I wish someone had met me at the gate before I ever walked into that front room and told me what would be asked of me there, and that the asking of it would be the real wrong, not any answer I could give. No one did. I learned it in the dark, from a woman I had never once thought to know, a quarter hour too late to be spared the worst of the sitting. And so I have become the woman who waits by the lane for the young ones, to say the plain things sooner, while it can still keep a weight from settling onto shoulders that never earned it. Tell me in the comments, so the other women will know they are not the only one. Has anyone ever asked you what you had done after someone else was the one who broke the promise? I read everyone, and I answer where I can. And the little book, A Quiet and Faithful Home, is waiting for you still, in the pinned comment, and in the code there on your screen, my gift, whenever you would like it. Ring the little bell before you go, so I will know to call you back, and stay a while near this window. Sit at this window with me again. There is always more of the story than one evening can hold.